Snowflakes drifted through the air, swirling in the dim evening light. A soft hush blanketed the small town, interrupted only by the crunch of boots on ice-covered pavement. A few shoppers lingered outside the warmly lit grocery store, their breath rising in pale plumes as they chatted about the biting cold. Then, from the shadows, a massive figure staggered forward. The bear emerged slowly, dragging itself across the frozen street. Its breath came in heavy, labored puffs, each exhale trembling in the winter air. A deep wound marred its left foreleg, blood seeping sluggishly into the packed snow. The creature's golden-brown fur was dull, matted with ice and suffering. It took one faltering step, then another, before its strength gave out. With a low, pained groan, the bear collapsed onto its side, sending a puff of snow into the air. Its ribs heaved, its eyes half-lidded with exhaustion. For a moment there was only silence. Then, a voice. "God help us," a man murmured. He stood just outside the store, a plastic bag dangling from his fingers, his face frozen in shock. Others around him stiffened, their conversations cut short. A woman grabbed his arm. "Come on, don't stare. It's dangerous." He hesitated, eyes locked onto the struggling bear, then let her pull him away. Another voice, older and gruff, muttered, "Should call someone. That thing's trouble." But no one moved. The bear exhaled a shuddering breath, shifting slightly, but the pain was too much. Its leg, grotesquely swollen, refused to support its weight. It lifted its head weakly, eyes flickering across the watching humans, searching, hoping, a silent plea. No one answered. A few people murmured, their voices hushed with unease. Fear laced the air, a quiet tension that hung thick and heavy. The bear was an intruder, an anomaly, a wild beast where it did not belong. "We should go inside," someone whispered, "before it gets desperate." The crowd began to thin. Doors shut. Curtains twitched closed. The town, once alive with quiet evening chatter, withdrew into itself, turning its back on the suffering creature. But not everyone had looked away. A soft giggle broke through the cold. Near the store entrance, bundled in a thick winter coat, a toddler girl sat in her stroller. Chubby hands peeked from her mittens, her tiny fingers flexing as she reached forward. Her round cheeks were rosy, her bright eyes locked onto the bear. "Bear," she babbled, her voice sweet and filled with delight. Her little arms stretched toward the fallen creature, as if to embrace it from afar. She kicked her feet excitedly, a joyful squeal slipping from her lips. To her, the bear was not a threat, not a dangerous animal, not something to be feared. To her, it was wonderful. "Baby, no!" A sharp gasp cut through the moment. The mother grabbed the stroller, yanking it back. Her face was pale, panic flashing in her wide eyes. "Don't look at it," she hissed, her voice tight with fear. But the baby's delight shattered into heartbreak. A wail erupted from her tiny chest, loud, piercing, and desperate. Tears welled up in her eyes, her small fists shaking as she fought against the restraint of her stroller. She sobbed, reaching again, her cries filled with the pure sorrow only a child could feel. The mother's hands tightened on the stroller's handle. The bear lifted its head slightly at the sound, its glazed eyes shifting toward the crying child. Its ears twitched. A soft rumble vibrated through its chest, a sound too weak to be a growl, more like a sigh. Then with another breath its head sank back onto the snow. The baby wailed louder. The cold wind cut through the abandoned road, rattling loose signs and whispering through the cracks in worn-down buildings. Snowflakes drifted in lazy spirals, settling onto the frozen earth. A lone figure walked hurriedly through the near-deserted street, clutching a bundled infant tightly against her chest. The baby's cries were sharp, piercing the quiet like a jagged wound. The mother shushed it frantically, her breath visible in the frigid air. She adjusted her scarf, her pace quickening, her boots crunching against the frost-laced pavement. Every step she took carried a desperate urgency. Home was close, Safety was close. Then she saw it. A dark shape collapsed near the alley's entrance, its massive form partially covered in snow. A bear. A wild bear, barely a few feet away. She stopped dead. Her breath hitched, fear turning her limbs to ice. Her first instinct was to run. Every muscle screamed for her to flee, to shield her child from the looming danger. But the bear, it didn't move. Its body was still, save for the faint rise and fall of its chest. Snowflakes clung to its thick fur, its head resting heavily on its forelimbs. A ragged breath puffed from its nose, disappearing into the cold air. Then, as if responding to the baby's cries, the bear let out a sound, a deep, soft, mournful noise. A sound not of aggression, but something else, something unspoken. The mother's pulse pounded in her ears. Her feet refused to obey her command to move. She couldn't tear her gaze away. Fear twisted in her gut, warring with something she couldn't quite name. The baby, oblivious to the looming beast, wriggled in her arms and reached out, tiny fingers grasping toward the creature. A fresh wail broke from the child's lips, sharp and unrelenting. The bear's eyes, dull and weary, lifted ever so slightly. It watched. It did not growl, did not move, did not bare its teeth, just watched. A silent plea buried in those tired, pain-clouded eyes. A murmur rippled through the scattered onlookers. They stood at a cautious distance, bundled in thick coats and scarves, clutching their phones. "It's faking weakness," a man whispered, suspicion lacing his voice. "Someone call animal control," another said. A woman, shaking her head, muttered, "It's too dangerous. Just leave it." No one moved to help. The mother's breath came in short gasps. Every instinct screamed for her to turn around, to leave the bear to its fate. But the baby's cries only grew louder, more insistent, an unbearable sound in the icy air. She looked at the bear again. Really looked. And in its eyes, she saw something raw. Not just exhaustion, not just pain. Something deeper, something fragile, almost human. Her grip on her child tightened. Her heart pounded. And still she hesitated. Another sharp cry from the baby. The sound seemed to echo in the bear's stillness, as if reaching some untouched place deep inside its soul. The mother took a shaky breath. Then, against every logical thought, against the primal fear clawing at her chest, she stepped forward. The murmurs behind her rose into alarm. "What is she doing?" someone hissed. "Stop!" a man urged, but did not move to intervene. She barely heard them. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she inched closer. The bear barely reacted, its dull eyes half-lidded, its chest rising and falling in weak, labored movements. She knelt, trembling. Her breath hitched, every fiber of her being poised to retreat. The baby squirmed in her arms, reaching again, tiny fingers brushing against coarse, ice-cold fur. A collective gasp from the crowd. The bear did not move. Then, with a slow, weak exhale, it let out one shuddering breath. A breath that carried the weight of exhaustion, of surrender. A breath that changed everything. The wind howled through the trees, carrying the scent of frost and earth. The mother shivered, but it wasn't from the cold. Her eyes flickered between the enormous bear lying motionless on the ground and the baby gripping her coat. The bear's chest rose and fell in slow, strained breaths. It was in pain. Dying, maybe. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. Who was she supposed to call? Animal control? A vet? Would they even come out here? Would they put the bear down? There was no time to debate. Every second the bear lay there, its life slipped further away. She stared at her phone screen, hesitating. Then her fingers moved almost instinctively, dialing a number she hadn't called in years. The ring echoed in her ear. Click. A rough, familiar voice answered. "Dad, I need help. Now." Silence. Then a slow intake of breath. "What's going on?" "There's a bear. It's hurt. Badly. Its leg is broken, maybe worse. I don't know what to do." A pause. Then, "Where are you?" "Just outside town, near the old mill road." Her father exhaled sharply. "Listen to me carefully. Keep it calm. Don't make sudden movements. If it's still breathing, it's not too late. Find something to stabilize the leg. Anything. It won't hurt you. It knows you're helping." She swallowed hard, heart pounding. "It won't hurt you." Easy for him to say. But as she looked into the bear's weary, pain-clouded eyes, she knew he was right. The bear wasn't a threat. It was pleading for help in the only way it could. She glanced around, searching. Her scarf. A broken tree branch. Anything to keep the leg from shifting. She worked quickly, improvising, while the bear let out a deep, shuddering sigh. A murmur of voices rose behind her. She turned to see a small crowd gathering, neighbors, passing hikers. Some looked concerned, others afraid. "This is insane," someone shouted. "That thing could attack at any moment," another voice called. She tightened her jaw, but before she could respond, a small hand reached out. Her baby, so young, so innocent, touched the bear's fur with no fear, only wonder. The crowd gasped, but the bear didn't react. It just lay there, breathing in ragged gasps. A heavy silence fell. Doubt crept into their faces. If a child could see past the fear, could they? The mother turned back to the bear, her decision made. She wouldn't let it die here. Not like this. "Dad," she said, voice steady now, "tell me what to do next." The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the sharp bite of winter. Snowdrifts swallowed the narrow forest road, leaving only a single path barely wide enough for the family's worn-out truck. Inside, the father gripped the wheel, eyes scanning the road ahead, while the mother clutched their baby close, wrapping an extra scarf around the little one's face. Then, the truck jerked to a stop. Ahead, a massive form lay sprawled across the icy road. A bear. A frozen breath caught in the father's throat. The mother's hands tensed. Even the baby, usually fussy during long drives, fell eerily silent. The animal wasn't moving. Unbreakable bond, again. The father hesitated. Approaching a wild bear was insanity, but something gnawed at him, a primal instinct. He pushed open the truck door, stepping out into the cold. The bear's fur was matted with ice and blood. Its flank rose and fell in uneven, shallow breaths. It was alive, but barely. The baby, still swaddled in thick blankets, let out a sudden soft noise. Not a cry, but something closer to a coo. The bear's eyelids fluttered weakly at the sound. The mother whispered urgently, "We have to go. It's dangerous." But the father knelt beside the enormous beast, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. His hands hovered over its leg, twisted at an unnatural angle, dark crimson staining the snow beneath. The bear had been suffering for hours, maybe longer. Then, for just a moment, the bear's eyes met his. Pain, helplessness, something deeper, trust? The father swallowed hard. "We can't just leave it." Cliffhanger. A sudden crunch of snow made the father whirl around. Glowing eyes, more than one. A shadow moved between the trees. Then another. Wolves. They had been waiting. The father's breath turned sharp. The bear wasn't the only one in danger. Now, so was his family.